I can't believe the pieces are coming together in the way that they have. So I told you my college career, and I started, I mean, just to add to that, I started my major in college was studio art and Spanish. Spanish because I knew so much. I was like, let me just pick up a major. And I was majoring in studio art because I had intentions to transfer or to be a part of a I forget what they call it now. Maybe a dual degree program where after 2 years I would go to Washington University or something like that and study architecture. And I had in my mind for a long time that I wanted to study architecture. My grandfather was the first Black licensed contractor in Fort Lauderdale, Raymond George Christie. And he also was a photographer and just inspired a lot of my aesthetic outlook and my mother's. And she imparted so much in me because of what he taught her, just about like, and my grandmother, the photographs are like gold in our family. They are more worth more than money. um so we have all these amazing pictures from like my my mother and her twin sister when they were children, and um, from pictures that they got at studios, taken by Dr. Miza, who was a famous, photographer, or he had a studio, and also family pictures. So that was a part of me. And I don't know, I just, so I ended up not leaving to go to the dual degree program because I was bonded by that time with my college friends, and being at Agnes Scott, I wanted to stay the 4 years. So I carried out the studio art major, saying that I would do the architecture later in grad school. Um, I took a little break after college. I went back down south. I was teaching at St. Jerome's again, doing some aid work and teaching special interest classes. Sister Vivian at the time was still the principal, and I remember her telling me during that, it was like a 2 year span, that she thought I should get a PhD in education. And I was maybe in my very early 20s. I was just out of undergrad. So I was like, ick, no, you know? Um, and I was in a rush to get out of there because I realized later that that age of student isn't really my cup of tea, but it was a wonderful experience because being getting the opportunity to teach those classes at the time and hear that from Sister Vivian. I worked under Wendy Lockard. Um, I don't know. It gave me a certain focus for my art. So then back to where I was. Okay, so I go to Savannah. I moved to Savannah to start school at Savannah College of Art and Design in architecture. I'm bored out of my mind. I can't do it. And I think I did it for the first year. And ultimately, I was like, this is killing my soul. Photography seems like it's a good place for me to merge the technical with the artistic. I loved the dark room. At the time that I was starting SCAD, we were still doing analog, we were still doing film. So I know black and white craft, color craft, large format. I mean, like, I lived in Bergen Hall, had wonderful friends and amazing teachers there. And I think I was pretty good. Commercial photography from, dang, Catherine Cardarelli taught us commercial photography. I was just thinking about that today. Do you know that one of my assignments, I took a picture of the first iPod that came out? Some people were clowning me over last weekend because I use Apple Music. And I'm like, I use Apple Music because I have an iTunes library that is as old as the iPod. And I remembered one of my assignments for her class that was a pretty nice picture. And now, and I never, I would have thrown that thing away. And now I'm like, I need to frame that. That's a piece of artwork, you know? So, I loved photography, and in the photography program, as you can hear, I have things to say. So of course, I got into the critical analysis thing, photographic critical theory. That's the thing I was like hip about at the time. And a person named Jenny Kula, who was teaching me at the time, issues in contemporary photography, um, said to me, "You need to get a PhD." And so then I was focused on that phrase, photographic critical theory. And I think there was a program like out at UC Irvine or something, Irvine. I don't think I really wanted to go that far, but eventually I came to the program at Penn State that was an art education and women's gender and sexuality program. Now let me tell you why that was intriguing to me. At the same time that I was at SCAD, I was working for the Girl Scouts. I moved up to Savannah the summer before school was starting because I didn't have a place to live. I was trying to like get to know the lay of the land. And so I took a job as a summer counselor at, damn, what's the name of the camp on Rosedew Island? I was going to say Camp Nocatee, but that's my camp from Girlhood in Florida. I'll remember it later. Oh my God, Shake is going to kill me. Um, anyway, I took this job and I ended up getting a full-time job with them to do while I was in school. They knew I was in school. They hired me. I think it was called a program service specialist. And I was to deliver the Girl Scout program to girls in housing communities that lived around the downtown area of Savannah, at-risk school programs like 21st Century Leaders, and I stayed there 5 years. It really like began my career and like me knowing what I wanted to do. I was doing this at the same time as SCAD. So I was taking pictures of the girls, I was taking pictures with the girls. I have a whole body of work on that time. And the girls' work. We were doing shows together. Um, I didn't get fired, but I got laid off. I got laid off at the time that the Girl Scout Council of Savannah was transitioning into Girl Scouts of Historic Georgia, which it was growing to cover the whole state, and all these changes were happening. CEO was changing. I was out here doing this work on pleasure with girls. And actually, I wasn't doing work on, I was doing just sexual knowledge. Like the girls that I was working with were getting pregnant all over the place. They were in their teens. And in the beginning, the way I could articulate it was that it was a problem that I needed to fix. But eventually it got to, how can I intercede in this conversation? Because the thing that worried me the most was that girls were getting pregnant so young. And amongst us and the conversations we were having, I knew that it wasn't a pleasurable experience for them. And then they were becoming mothers so young. And felt, I felt sad that, you know, what happens to your pleasure narrative? What happens to your narrative about your own body and how you center your own pleasure? So anyway, I was starting to have these conversations with groups that I was working with, and I think it was um I don't know how to describe it. The eyes were on me. Eyes and ears were on me. So I got laid off in this swoop that they did across the big council. I think just getting rid of controversial subjects like myself and cutting the fat, they thought, you know. And I had this bug in my ear to work on a PhD. So I was like, that's probably the next thing I should be doing anyway. I took a spout. I was in, I got, I'm not going to even get into the complications of Penn State, but I was accepted into a program in 2011, but I was doing it from long distance. And during that time, I was in Miami working with Jillian Hernandez, founder of Women on the Rise. When Jill got ready to go work on her PhD, not work on her, write her dissertation, she passed the reins over to me to direct Women on the Rise. And I did that for 2 years, I think, before it was time for me to move to Penn State and do my in-person, the in-person part of my program. And then I ended up staying in Pennsylvania for 9 years.